Hey there, viewers, and welcome back to the Self-Made Auto Channel. We got us a 2007 Mazda. It's an RX8. It's got the big 1.3 liter in it. Rotary engine. You don't see many of these, folks, and there's not much to it. Matter of fact, you take the battery and air cleaner off, that's about half of what's under the hood here. So, the money light is on, and of course the battery's dead and the thing barely starts, but that's neither here nor there. So I got this bad boy plugged in. I had to take this stuff off to get the battery charging up. And it looks like here we have, can you guys see, we have a P0411 secondary air injection incorrect flow, and then we've got a 2259 secondary air injection solenoid control B circuit low, and then there's a code for lost comm with instrument panel. So needless to say, we will look at secondary air injection first here, which I did note that when I pulled it in I could hear the air pump whistling. So let's identify some of the components here and see what we got to do. Usually secondary air injection systems are pretty simple. It looks like the air pump sits right over there. Yep, that's the air pump, like half size of the engine, and then it looks like a control valve there of some sort with a vacuum hose going to it. So let's figure out what this thing's made of, and then we'll come up with some kind of fancy test. Alright, so I was right. I'm going to pop into active test here. I want to see if we got any bidirectional controls. This is the air pump. It is a bypass valve, so it's like a check valve, vacuum controlled, and that's about it. Has a relay, turns this on, a solenoid that lives somewhere on the back of the engine, and then this air diverter valve, it can open and close it, and then it uses the upstream oxygen sensor to make sure it works. So pretty simple system. Let's first of all make sure my ears weren't deceiving me. I'm going to take and turn this pump on, see if we hear it whistling. Ooh, baby! Alright, now let's unhook the hose and see if she blows. Look at that, I got that done by hand. I ain't gonna get that lucky there though. First glance, it looks like somebody's already been here because I see marks where the clamp was sitting prior to us taking it off. Okay, so we should have some good blow here. Let's see. So hear that motor deadheaded, hear what that sounds like? Oh, I think I know what your problem is, lady. I think our secondary air valve here is stuck open. This should be closed right now. Otherwise, you're going to get exhaust gas back up in this joint. And it's not good. Where does that go? That goes way down yonder to the exhaust. Let me get a hose, see if I can put my lips on it. That should be closed. And then when you apply vacuum to it, it should open. Unless I'm thinking about it backwards, but that's typically the way these work. Let's get some stuff here. It's snowing like a banshee out there right now. Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. I think we'll find a hose to stick over that. Before I do that, let's just stick see if we can hear the vacuum. It does make a little popping sound. Let me turn this pump back on, see if it changes tone when we open and close it here. Let's open. Oh, okay, it does. that seems to be opening and closing. I'm just curious, with the control solenoid turned off that runs it, I don't know if it has a vent circuit on it. I don't know if we'll be able to pump it up. No, we won't. It must be it vents to the atmosphere when it turns off. So, how can we do that? That sucker is way on the back of the intake manifold. I suppose we could start it. Let me pop out of here. I think there is a bidirectional control. Yeah, so port air bypass. Port air bypass control solenoid valve. I believe that's going to be it. Let me just click on that. You don't need any data. Let me just turn it on, see what it sounds like. Trying to feel for it here. I think that hose goes around here to the rear. Try to feel where these hoses go. Okay, I think I got my hand on something now. Okay. It's like why has it got 3 wires? Maybe that's not. Oh, I see. One of the wires is piggyback. Let me make sure this is it. Yeah, so I unplugged it and it quit clicking. So that's got to be our solenoid. So what we can do, let me identify where it gets its vacuum source from. And then we can start the car and we can see if it's, well, I guess we can just start and see if we have vacuum here right now. Anyways, we don't really care where it has its source from unless it's not there. So let me fire this pig up. If it'll start. The only engine that's when it's brand new, barely has enough compression to run. Alright, so let's see here. Wait for my scanner to get caught up. Yeah, so it has vacuum on it. No, it doesn't. So I'll hook it up here so you guys can see. So I don't know if you guys can see that gauge, but right now there's no vacuum. And we'll turn it on, and then we have full manifold vacuum. And then we'll turn it off, and it vents. I'm really thinking this valve was stuck when we first got here because it sure sounded different. Come on, baby. So when that opens, we should hear exhaust. But that goes straight into the catalytic converter. So that's interesting. All right, let me shut it off for a second. So that's interesting. So that appears to be functioning currently. So I think what we'll do is we'll hook that back on. We're going to go back to the air pump here on the scan tool. And this time we're going to pick some live data. I want to see if I can find the front air fuel ratio sensor or oxygen sensor. There we go, bank 1, sensor 1, bank 1, sensor 2. And then we're going to turn the air pump on, and then we're going to open the valve. Let's see. So I've got the front, it must be an air fuel ratio sensor because I see it's measuring in microamps. So it must be the pumping current in and out of that sensor. And then we got our downstream, which is an oxygen sensor. So if we turn our pump on, nothing should happen right now. All right, now I'm going to open that valve. We should be able to watch our rear O2 drive right lean, and our current should go quite high on the front. Yeah, it does. It knocks our rear O2 sensor right down to 0. And our current goes really high in the front. So that tells me everything's working. So long as ECM has control of it, that's pretty interesting. So why is it doing what it's doing? That's a good question, because everything seems to function. Front A.I.R is working, downstream's working. Nothing's plugged. Solenoid works. Secondary air pump works. I'm near certain though when we first started here that sounded like it wasn't sounded like it was open, but I guess it couldn't have been. Pretty interesting here. What do you do? What do you do? What would I do? I'll tell you what I would do. Because I would clear the codes and see, I mean, somebody's definitely been here. See if the monitor runs and take it from there. Unfortunately, it's got to sit overnight to do that. There's no way to force that secondary air pump to run because that only runs after it's set. It only runs for a brief period of time. I've already looked to see if there's a service bolt and any kind of programming update. There's not. So this is a little bit interesting. So the only thing that has me slightly concerned is the circuit code that it threw for that bypass solenoid. I don't remember the code number, 22 something or other. I did look in service data to see what it takes to generate that code, and it's pretty simple. So it's a 2-wire solenoid, opens and closes, and it monitors it the same way a lot of solenoids are monitored. It has 12 volts going into it, and then it goes through, the coil of wires, the electromagnetic coil, the electromagnet in there, and then it comes out 12 volts. So it goes in 12 volts, comes out 12 volts, goes to the control of the PCM. The PCM at that point looks for a certain amount of voltage, which should be 12 volts, and then that's how it determines if the circuit's intact. But it doesn't give me, in service data, it doesn't give me any resistance specs as far as what a good solenoid is or what it draws. Usually these things are less than an amp. Zoinks! I think it just quit. Ah, it did. Hallelujah. So that's that wire I had unplugged back here. I think it just quit working. It's no longer clicking. Let's unplug it. Let's make sure we have control. Hopefully it just broke. That'll be great. Hold on, don't go anywhere. Are you still there? You're still there. Whew. Let's make sure that the computer still has control of it. If it does, then our solenoid just died live on camera. Which that would be awesome. Let's see if it can light up a 1/4 amp. Can't. Oh, there it is. I just got crappy connection. There we go. There's on. There's off. Can you guys see? On. Off. You can't see, can you? Suck at this. There we go. Okay, so we have control, at least for a 1/4 amp of it. We plug it back in. If I can find the hole. Alright, talk to me. Where you at, baby? There, let's plug back in. On, off, sweet. Looks like the whole stinking solenoid pack thing back here. See if I can wiggle it here a little bit. Well, that's good. Tell you what, let me just back probe it. These big old honking wires in this thing. And we'll see if, make sure we have control still with it plugged in. Make sure there's not something else going on funny there. It's kind of funny business. Bear with me, folks. Why they had to stick this engine so far back, I don't know. Alright, so what's so embarrassing when you open your hood? And I think I told you it was an RX7, but indeed it's not, because, you know, they don't make those anymore. It's an RX8, I guess. Potatoes, potatoes. Okay. We're back probe. See if I can find where it goes. Oh, come on, honey. There you go. Okay. We're in. Let's see if... Alright, so we're back probed. We're plugged in. Our light is still bright. We still have control, but we no longer have any clickage. Our solenoid did not like to be played with. Ooh, it's like working on an F-250. Lean way back there. So oddly enough, when we first started looking at it, it worked. And then the more you play with it, it eventually quits working. It's just how life is, folks. And that's what had me curious, because let's go back and read that code. I think it was solenoid B, control circuit, voltage low, something like that. And the other code, the incorrect flow code, is simply because if that solenoid works, then there is not the correct flow. Wait for the scan tool to fire up. I have nothing more to say to you until then. Just hurry up and wait. We're still waiting. So, how about the corona? Huh? Heard enough about that on the news? We're still waiting here. There we go. Secondary air injection system control B circuit low, so it's low voltage. And then incorrect flow detected. Like I say, ECM's just looking for this valve, you know, pump turn on, valve to open. It's looking for the voltage to drop on the A.I.R sensor and downstream sensor indicate, hey, everything's working. If it's not, it says incorrect flow. You can't have correct flow without the solenoid. I guess that's it. It needs a new control solenoid. Let me draw you a little diagram as far as what the ECM's looking at to set that low voltage code. So we're going to draw the magic box. So this is the ECM. Okay, and then we're going to draw our solenoid. I don't know how to draw a solenoid. There's our solenoid. And then over here we're just going to draw the battery. Okay? We have one wire out of the solenoid. It goes right to the battery positive. Not really, but we're just, bear with me. It goes to a fuse. It goes in the solenoid. This has the vacuum hoses out of it. This vacuum goes to the engine, and this one goes to the air injection reactor valve, we'll call it. And then the other wire comes out and goes to the ECM, and inside the ECM there's magic, and that turns this circuit on. So here we have 12 volts, we'll say hypothetically, goes in, goes through the coil of wires, goes out the other side, and without the circuit being turned on, we should have 12 volts here. Oh wait, you guys got some glare. Maybe that'll help. So 12 volts in, through the winding of wires, back out, and 12 volts. And inside here is a little bean counter. This guy, he's got his little clipboard, and he walks around all the time checking to make sure this wire is good, that wire is good, everybody's happy. And technically, with this solenoid turned off, we should have 12 volts. And the little bean counter comes up and looks at it, and if he sees something other than 12, I think service info said anything below, I think it was like 8.6. I don't know why they picked that number, but they did. If it sees anything here other than 12, let's say he sees 4 volts, he writes on his memo, he calls out to the mill, to your check engine light, and says, hey, turn on. So that's how that works, just for what it's worth. So that's the best I can explain it to you in layman's terms. So that's that, folks. Pretty easy one to diagnose. Pretty simple system. Only a couple components, no fancy pressure sensors, anything like that, like we've done in the past. I think last one we did was on a Volkswagen on this channel. I think I recorded that one. If not, I probably should have. But yeah, the V-dub that I just did had an actual pressure sensor in the tube, and somebody had swapped it with the map sensor. They look similar, but they function differently. So that's all good. And hopefully you understood a little bit what the ECM looks at. How can it determine, you know, a low voltage code on a solenoid? Of course, that's a ground side switched solenoid. Sometimes the ECM can actually provide power to a solenoid, and that solenoid actually has a full-time ground. So they work one of two ways, you know, the high side driver, low side driver, I think they call it something like that. But needless to say, I'm going to keep moving and give this guy a quote and go out and bring in the next snow-covered vehicle here at the end of March. Awesome. And why don't you guys be awesome and go down there in that comment box and leave a question, comment, criticism, concern. While you're down there, subscribe, ring that bell. And just remember, viewers, if I can do it, you can do it. Thanks for watching.